Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Situation Room. We all know that Pakistan and India have agreed to a ceasefire in the interests of regional peace and security. We know that India has been violating our sovereignty since 7th May 2025, and of course we know that they've done missile insertions. They've also added to the volatility in an already unstable security environment. In the intervening night of 9th and 10th May, India launched missile attacks on many Pakistan Air Force bases and airports. In view of India's unabated aggression, Pakistan had to exercise its right to self-defense under the UN Charter Article 51, as we saw. No country could compromise its right of sovereignty and territorial integrity. The purpose of our action was to demonstrate our right and will and capability to defend our territory and our people, as our armed forces, as our Air Force have demonstrated very, very aptly. Pakistan has achieved its objectives. It has successfully defended its territory and restored its deterrence. India's efforts to establish a new normal in bilateral relations have been successfully thwarted. Under international law, the Indian actions since 7th May 2025 have manifestly constituted acts of war, as we've also seen their abrogation, termination of the Indus Water Treaty. It is most unfortunate that India's reckless conduct has brought the two nuclear armed states face to face in this manner. It has contributed to this kind of aggression in Pakistan, and it has led to this kind of volatility in this region overall. India blamed Pakistan for the Pahalgam attack without any verifiable details. When the Prime Minister of Pakistan stated categorically that we are willing to come to any kind of an inquiry, submit to any kind of inquiry, there was no credible response. There was nothing that could be, there was no response, there was no credible response to this. Nothing was given out, nothing was given to international media to corroborate their assertions against Pakistan. We will be talking about overall, of course, how we see this ceasefire. Of course, many countries having relayed the message of India wanting to resort to some kind of a ceasefire between Pakistan and India. And how do we see now this panning out in the next 2 to 3 days? All of that today. I have with me Barrister Safi Ghauri. Thank you so much for being with us today. He's a legal expert. We've also been joined by Air Marshal Ahmed Masood. Thank you for joining us today. Air Marshal, we know that in the interests of regional peace and security, stability, Pakistan has agreed to a ceasefire, having very capably demonstrated our ability and our resolve to defend our territory and our right to our sovereignty very aptly. How do you see this news of a ceasefire at this time?
So, Mahrukh, thank you very much for your show and inviting me. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would like to dissect your question into two parts. Primarily, it is that what sort of actions which have been taken by Pakistan, and how do we see it from the military perspective and also from the national security perspective. So, if you see from the military side, I would like to congratulate the whole nation and the way the military has been able to conduct itself and repel an aggressor. That shows the professionalism, training, and the amount of technology which the Pakistan military and especially Pakistan Air Force had been able to harness and ensure that we remain in pace with all the modern tools and technologies, and we are able to employ the air power in a perfect manner, which shows a modern, a very high tech, and a cutting edge Air Force. That has traditionally been the forte of Pakistan Air Force. So, coming to the operation as a whole, I mean, you see three stages of the operation. First stage was when they went uh, for the aggression, and they started with the strikes. And the history goes back to Pulwama, and I would just like to quote for the reason that that was the first time that they crossed the border and were able to burst our territorial integrity and challenge the sovereignty of Pakistan by throwing the bombs inside our territory. We did, we were succeeded in able to repelling the adversary very promptly and were able to shoot down the aircraft and win the air battle. But however, the narrative of the Moody and its is information campaign, which is based on fake lie and deceit, they were able to win a sort of political majority in the elections and win the election subsequently. So remember that as Clausewitz says that the military campaign or the battle, any of the war is an extension of the political aims, so that we always have to keep in mind whenever we are fighting a war, because military is one aspect of our national security. So now once it came to the campaign this time, they were very ferocious. Last time we were able to control the escalation and show ourselves as a very responsible nation, and as a nation who believes in regional peace, who believes that both the nuclear armed nation have to respect each other and have to coexist and remain in a sort of cooperation and collaboration where they are able to have mutual interest in many domains. However, this time again, there happens a stage managed incidents in Kashmir, and the Indians started to go for an aggression without a formal inquiry, which Pakistan very aptly asked for, and they started to strike length and breadth of our territory, starting from Kashmir to the southern Punjab, and were able to engage 15 to 20 targets with a lot of ammunition throwing within our territory and also engaging. And there were casualties of the civilians, the innocent civilians. There were a kid who also died during that campaign. So all this was happening, and Pakistan was showing a sort of maturity in its action, and they didn't want that the war should further escalate.
Would you agree that this is actually a demonstration of escalating to de-escalate, essentially, whatever we've done in terms of our response to what happened on 6th
Yes,
and the
look,
night of 6th
Mahrukh,
and 7th May also?
that is very important. I am coming to that point, and that's a very important point which you have highlighted. But till then, we would I would just like to mention here that the mindset of the leadership of India is so polluted that they are not, I mean, they don't really accept the very existence of Pakistan. And for this reason, they have always tried to win their elections and the vote bank by always giving slogans and raising voices and also even attacking Pakistan so that they are able to get the public support. So that's very dangerous mindset actually. For that mindset, no sort of appeasement is essentially required. And this is the deduction of the last Pulwama as well as this particular incidents. And we should be very much, aggressive in giving them the reply so that it should be to an extent where we are able to establish our deterrence very effectively. And that can only be done if we.
I want to come to that. I want to come to how successful you think we have been as far as our, establishing our deterrence conclusively. Let me come back to you on that. I'm going to go to Safiullah here. Safiullah, overall, do you think that, we, of course, first of all, let's start by, asking for any kind of credible evidence, which we did, to which we received no response. And till date, we received no response. If we look at what happened in the media also, and, this is very much right there in front of everyone, documented very aptly, there is no response to that. There is a trajectory of accusations that is leveled against Pakistan repeatedly, for which there is really no proof. If we talk about the way that they have thrown missiles on mosques, and then labeled those locations and those civilians who have passed away as terrorists, there is no proof of any of those assertions.
Yeah.
We've gone to the international media on that, we've gone to the UN also. Overall, that is where this started from. But do you think that India underestimated us yet again?
Oh, 100%. Obviously, so it's very obvious. India has taken its entire play this time around from Israel. they did exactly what Israel does, bomb first. If they bomb something, they just call it a terrorist hideout, terrorist camp, and that's what they've done. They've bombed mosques, they've bombed innocent houses, and they just say, oh, after bombing them, they're like, oh, we've ended up killing some terrorists. They've created fake accounts saying that they were terrorists inside, and that's a very standard Israel behavior. This is what Israel does. In fact, now it's amazing that not only are they doing the same tactics, the victims are the same as well, in the sense that the Palestinians are suffering from Israeli weapons, and India has deployed those very same Israeli weapons that are used against the Gazans against us. So two countries in the world now have the unique honor of being attacked by Israeli weapons, and I think both of them represent very similar values.
And also using them against women and children.
Of course, in the same manner, with the same acquisitions, there is practically no discernible difference between the methodologies of Israel and the methodologies of India. And India has been emboldened by Israel. They've seen what Israel has done, and they've seen that they've gotten away with it. So they thought they could as well. Except that we are not Palestine, we are not Gaza. We have a standing army, which is one of the best armies in the world. So we were obviously going to put up a fight. This is where the Indian bravado, this is where the Indian delusions reached a peak, where they thought that we would also capitulate, like they have seen the kind of destruction in Gaza. They thought they would be able to do the same to Pakistan. That wasn't going to happen from the get-go. That is something every Pakistani knew. But the Indians don't know because of what their media is feeding them, and that's unfortunate, because I think what their media has done is they have sent them into this weird fervor of believing that Pakistan is some ragged old third world country with no defenses, no economy, nothing at all. And now that they are looking at Pakistan, even as they are bombing us, even as the media images of, even the false images that India is showing of them bombing us are showing cities like Lahore and Islamabad, the Indians are flabbergasted. They did not imagine these cities to be as vibrant and as big as they are. So that's one thing. But also, I want to point out something very interesting and something very enjoyable. So yesterday, you and I had...
Let me come back to...
Just one thing, if I may, please. Yesterday, you and I had a show. It was cut because DGI-SPR came. And I love that DGI-SPR is the one who's reading the Indian Constitution. He's read out FIRs. He read out Indian laws. I am right now going to ask, why is it that Indian judiciaries and Indian lawyers are not looking at the Pahalgam FIR? Why can they not see the kind of nonsensical, farcical case that the Indian government has built out, and why is our DGI-SPR the one who's teaching them their own laws? I think this is a moment of shame for the Indian judiciary.
Extremely important point, and also that most of all, they have nothing to say to any, there's no credible answer. There's only hyperbole.
That is why they can't have an investigation.
There's only hyperbole, there's only abuse.
Absolutely.
That when you ask them if the child who died in this attack was a terrorist.
Yeah.
And how do they prove anything else? Because there's this
that's the point. They will just say that he was a son of a terrorist. His father was a terrorist. They were hiding out. They used him as a human shield. Same thing as Israel.
Let me come back to you on that. Air Marshal Ahmed Sahib, can you hear me? I want to talk about the night of 6th
I can hear you.
I want to talk about the night of 6th and 7th, and also about the operation as it took place yesterday night, and the kind of equipment that was used. We can't talk about it enough. The way that our Air Force performed overall, and the way the heroism that is is on display, and really every Pakistani is proud of the way that our forces have rallied behind Pakistan.
Thank you very much. I think this is very important to explain this thing to a common person, and especially in the language which we are speaking. It will be good for the foreign audience to also listen to this. So please give me some time to explain this thing very comprehensively. So on the 6th and night of the 6th and 7th, that was the first step, or you can say the day one of the war on aggression, which was launched against us. At that time, we were totally in that frame of mind that they will do something, but we wanted to do the defense of our motherland. And we were showing the restraint, which we have always shown. And I personally believe very strongly that this time we have learned a lesson that the minds like Modi and Amit Shah doesn't want any restraint, and they always take it as our weakness. Anyway, they came with about 75 to 80 aircraft jets, and in which there were different types of jets which were used for the bombing, which were their escorts, which were for electronic warfare, which were also for some sort of command and control centers in the air, which are the AWACS, and they were also assisted by ground-based sensors and missiles. So this whole package was of almost 80 jets and aircraft. They were in the air. So they targeted our almost 15 to 16 places. And meanwhile, we had our jets also in the air. So we had almost 30 to 35 jets. So it makes almost 125 jets in the air in that particular space, which is a lot number of aircraft. And I would like to add to this that this was one of the biggest air battles of the modern era. After Second World War, could not see such a big air battle in any of the wars. Even the Gulf War, the number of the aircraft which was used for once were much less than what we used in this air battle. So all high-tech sensors were also employed from our side also, and our aircraft were also assisted by the force multipliers. So actually, once we're talking about this battle, if we are talking about the missiles and their ranges and the bombs, which are having ranges of 200 to 50 kilometers. So the battle is going on in which actually, as a matter of fact, we are within our borders, 40 miles, 50 miles, 60 miles. This is a very interesting situation. It doesn't happen like that. We are having contiguous borders. We are staying within our borders 50 miles, which is a safe distance and is not taken as a threat. And we are shooting the other person across the border. Our targets were engaged from 5 kilometers to say about 100 kilometers. And that was something which was unprecedented. And then our jets came to know about this thing, that these jets, which are within the territory of India, are actually shooting our targets. And that we came to know through our sensors and our intelligence info. And that is where our reaction started, actually. Before that, we could not react because they were within their own territory. So that is where the shooting started, and our jets, J-10, which shot Rafale, was within our own territory by about 40 to 50 kilometers, or even more than that. And the jet which was shot or Bhatinda was, say, 100 kilometers plus within their territory. So this all battle was taking place at these, big ranges, and we were lucky, and we the type of professionalism which we had. So that is where the airspace management counts. That is where the networking of your shooter and sensors, which is known in normal term as kill chain, which matters. That is where your resilience of networks and your data link matters. So are all aircraft, all jets.
I'm going to interject here to understand. Of course, when we talk about equipment, when we talk about what is available in terms of the aircraft, in terms of the technology to both the countries, we've seen countless comparisons on different, on media overall. In terms of, and it is always said that it is the man behind the gun. As far as this operation is concerned, as far as this technology is concerned, would you agree with this? In terms of course, you've explained some of the technology that Pakistan has and what is available to India. But of course, we've seen this in the past also. If we look at Pulwama, and we saw that the Indian Prime Minister at that time spoke about the glory attributed to Rafales, and yet Pakistan at this time, we know what happened with the Indian Rafales. So overall, in terms of our pilots, their training, their resolve, it is always about the person who's operating the technology, is it not?
That's very much there. It's the man behind the gun. The man behind the gun has to be trained very realistically. These sort of training tools and techniques have changed over a period of time, and the modernization has brought in new synthetic tools in which you can even, train, or you can simulate the whole scenario which you expect in the air of 120 to 150 aircraft with all sorts of shooters and sensors integrated into that, and you are doing all that training on ground. So that facility Pakistan has, and that exists within our training centers. We have top of the line, we have best of the best training schools, which are even better than the Top Gun schools of America. So as a matter of fact, we were able to train our people very well. Similarly, we were able to integrate our technology very well. And this whole thing, which I have explained you, makes the air defense system of Pakistan, which is very resilient, which is very much networked, and which has a common operating picture. Because of that, we are able to target our enemy very effectively. And that was the difference which was there between a J-10 pilot who was shooting a Rafale pilot, while the Rafale is much more potent aircraft and is established and a battle tested sort of aircraft with technologies and Meteor missiles, which is having much better ranges and spectra EW suite, which can jam anything and everything in the air. But still, we were able to shoot him before he could shoot our jet. So that's a big success, and it will be studied in the days and years to come by most of the modern air forces of the world. So this whole air defense system was employed not only in the air on the day one, but subsequently when the drone attack was there, we were able to not only repel and shoot so many drones, which are most sophisticated drones in the world. Iran drones has been used so effectively in the Azerbaijan-Armenian war that it was actually the game changer in that war. This is an Israeli origin drone and was used very effectively by the Azerbaijanis against the air defense system of Armenia. However, our air defense system was resilient enough, capable enough, and lethal enough to shoot those drones down, and we were able to secure our eyes and ears even after the drone attack. And lastly, I would like to say that once we went onto the offensive, and that was the time, the term which you use, that once you raise the stakes, that at times is much more important. You escalate to de-escalate, and our escalation ladder was supposed to be higher than what they have done damage to us, and that is where we went for their airfields and their military infrastructure and radar sites and air defense sites, and we were able to shoot down the world's best surface to air missile battery, which is S-400 by CM 400 our missile, which is a Chinese origin missile again. So these two things, which were actually the backbone and the center of gravity of Indian Air Force, which include Rafale and S-400, were neutralized by Pakistan Air Force. And this very clearly shows the training, the level of integration, and the level of confidence our pilots and our Air Force has in their ability to employ their weapon system very effectively in networked environments. And the air forces of the world will learn a lot from these battles in the future.
Thank you so much, Air Marshal. Thank you for your very valuable time. I think Air Marshal Amir Masood really summed up, the way that the operation took place and the way that, of course, our Air Force acted. And he's right that, this will be studied by nations in times to come. Safiullah, I want to talk about what happens now in terms of the ceasefire. First of all, of course, there's the media aspect of what happened. Whatever happened in these couple of days, and it illustrates the kind of misinformation, the media frenzy that we saw in India, the hyperbole. I would also say comic, comedy in at times. There have been real shows that have been real comedy that have nothing to do with reality, like you said, of what's happened on ground. Whereas the media on this side, we've always been restrained, we've always been, about facts, we've always been about, what actually was happening on ground, giving out information, trying to come, give out what was actually happening on ground to the audience overall. In terms of how India spins this, whatever happens, the fact is that this is in front of the world. The way that Pakistan responded to the attack, escalating to de-escalate. Of course, we kept saying that we have the right to self-defense. And India kept, underestimating that statement. Now, we are in a position of strength when we agree to this ceasefire. What do you think will happen on the 12th when we sit on the table?
So, Mahrukh, the 12th is the date of the review, of course. They're going to see what's going to happen. I believe very strongly that the ceasefire will continue. There is no reason for any country to escalate it further. India has suffered tremendous loss, as Air Marshal Masood just said, that the very backbone of the Indian defense was the Rafale planes and the air defense system, the S-400, both of which were taken down, and with relative ease, by the way. And I want to point out here that this was done not by Pakistan alone. There is a myth, and understandably, of course, the vast majority of the credit goes to Pakistan, but we had support. Whose support did we have in these efforts is, I think, very, very necessary to acknowledge, because there was of course a Chinese support. The PL-15 domestic variants that were used were given to us by China. The CW-40 missile that was used to neutralize the S-400 was also given to us by China. But that's not all. We were also constantly being given satellite imagery by China. And that's still not enough. You know, the fact that the S-400 was neutralized was at a time when the Indian grids were taken down. Those were done by hacker groups. Now, a lot of people say those hacker groups were from China. Some people say they were from North Korea. We don't know that, because these were hacking attempts that took down Indian grids. But what this shows us is something even more phenomenal. This shows us the kind of regional penetration and support that Pakistan has. What Pakistan has is the support of China. It has the support of various other countries towards the east. We have seen overwhelming support coming in favor of Pakistan from Bangladesh. Bengalis have been saying, we want to go to war. You know, all over Twitter we have seen this against India. And then we have seen support coming from Maldives, which already had its Quit India movement recently, where the Prime Minister was elected just on an anti-Indian slogan. There was support, Turkey of course, which is further away. I'm just talking about the region, the South Asian region. Then we had Nepal, which was helping us. We had Iran. Even the Taliban at this point of time formally sat down and offered us help. This goes on to show that India is in fact the bad guy. I mean, Pakistan could be wrong, but is everybody else wrong as well? You know, everybody else says that India is a bully, that wherever they go, they disturb them. Everywhere it's the same playbook for India.
And we've always, and you know, we know that India has always made assertions like the isolation that they say Pakistan suffers. Doesn't this show conclusively where the isolation is?
100%. India has isolated itself within the region, and it has gone on to the other end of the world and made friends with Israel. Fine, it has support from some other countries. Maybe it has some quantum of support, maybe from the USA. Russia was neutral throughout. Even right now, there is nothing on Russia today. But we've also seen the US
generally, if we look at what happened overall, you know, how would you, as far as the US is concerned, they've overall, you know,
they've been very neutral.
They've been neutral, and they've said that, you know, we want for two nuclear nations. It is paramount that they exercise caution and that there be peace.
And in fact, right now the ceasefire was announced by Donald Trump himself. So obviously we know that the USA and the USA is lauding Pakistan's effort. Listen, here's what the reality is. The reality of the matter is that Indian media can say whatever they want.
And what about international media? Do you think that, you know, we've seen that the Indians were taken aback
by
the international media asking the same questions? Where's the proof?
Not just that, the fact that I'll say two things here. Firstly, the international media is slow to catch up, because India is banning them like crazy. You know, 80,000 accounts banned. Even BBC is banned now in India. So, you know, all major news sites and things are getting banned. India is spreading misinformation like never before. Like, I was very impressed to learn from Indian media that Bahawalpur, my city, and also close to where you are from, is in the KPK province, that Rahim Yar Khan has a seaport, that you know, we have an international airport which has been destroyed in Chichawatni. Like, these are things we had no idea about Pakistan's geography.
And the thing is that their national media is so blatantly factually wrong. I mean this is astounding.
Amazing that, you know,
let's go for a short news. We're going to go to breaking news and then we'll come back. Safiullah, like we were earlier discussing overall, the way that the media was used in India, the factually incorrect figures, places, cities, you know, everything was thrown around in front of the audience. I won't be surprised, you know, like you said, if Bahawalpur is in KP, and you know, the way that overall the degeneration, I would say, of media, the debacle, the mockery that we saw happen. Overall, I want to talk more about what happens in terms of our, you know, the talks on the 12th also, and of course, as far as their abrogation, termination of the Indus Water Treaty is concerned. Of course, that's also an act of war for us. These are, of course, things that we will be discussing. It started, of course, we saw what happened with this false flag operation, hastily cooked up and all. Whatever it was used for, whether it was to satisfy their regional audience or, you know, it was certainly an adventure that has cost India a lot. In terms of how, you know, the international community looks at it, in terms of, we are walking into this, of course, I want to say again, from a position of strength by what happened. So what is the best case scenario in your opinion?
So I think there is one thing that I have personally thought of. Of course, this is strictly my personal opinion. It has absolutely no overbearing on what could happen. I think the most, not the best case, but the most likely scenario that will happen on the 12th is obviously just a review. But moving forward for more lasting peace, there would be a couple of things that would happen, which is of course an agreement on establishing the LOC as a permanent border, understanding that it cannot be violated because it has been violated a couple of times now, and we have also now followed suit tit for tat, and we understand, everybody understands that the implications this would have if this continues to spiral downwards. That's the first thing. The holding back of the water on the Indus Water Treaty, I personally do not see that as a credible threat to Pakistan at all. I have in fact never seen that as a threat. Now Pakistan might view it as something that India can do, but to stop the water of the Indus is logistically impossible for a country like India. The kind of dams that they would have to build, it would firstly take them decades, and secondly, even if they were to build all of that, they're just one missile throw away from complete subjugation. So they would end up wasting maybe billions, tens of billions of dollars in their attempts to stop something that Pakistan could blow away with just $2 million worth of a mobile missile, which we have already seen that we have. Now India knows that we have that capacity. So I really do not think that that is a credible threat to Pakistan. Never was. I think this was just a talking point, something that they said to appease their public, tell them that they will send no water to Pakistanis will die of thirst, blah blah, whatever. In fact, on the contrary, ever since India said that they will stop water, we have actually seen an increased flow of water. It's very funny that the exact opposite effect has happened. So that's that. So I think that India will, just for the semantics of it, just for the looks of it, say that we are going to withdraw from the closing of water. We will let Pakistan have some water. That will be face saving. They'll say we are doing it for humanity. And from Pakistan, they will probably demand back the captured pilot that we have. There's a lot of evidence that's showing that we have captured one of their pilots. She's in fact India's first female pilot to fly a Rafale, highly trained. Her name's out, her electronic signatures are out. So I think in return for that, we'll
Let me go to Mustafa Baloch, he's spokesperson Sindh government, and then I'll come back to you. Mustafa, can you hear me?
Yes, Mahrukh.
Thank you for your patience, Mustafa. Overall, we've also seen your leader, Bilawal Bhutto Saab, also, his comments overall, his latest, the way he spoke to the media overall, in terms of how and where we are at this time, as far as the ceasefire is concerned. How do you look at it? And of course, the way that Pakistan has shown resilience, Pakistan has shown its fortitude, it has shown its power to its enemy is of course unparalleled, and I'm sure that as a Pakistani, of course as a citizen of this country, you cannot be, and we can all not be more proud. Mustafa?
Absolutely, it's a moment of pride for every Pakistani, and I think we all stand united. And Pakistan has shown ultimate resilience and ultimate wisdom by our armed forces. Have dealt this situation. I mean, Pakistan stands tall in front of international community, and Modi I think he has pulled India back to centuries, and I think it will take time for them to come back. And I think it's a huge victory, and Modi was trying to thrust this war upon us, and we all know that it was a false flag operation in Bulgaria, and Pakistan had no role in that, and we tried to convince India and the international community to bring a fair investigation where it should be on a neutral place, and a neutral body should investigate that. But as we know, we knew that India was hiding something, and India was involved in that. So now it's evident that India is in fact a country that is trying to impose terror on its neighboring countries, and India tried to breach our sovereignty by sending 70 to 80 drones. And I mean, India should be held accountable for that. I mean, we cannot tolerate this thing anymore. This was
In terms of, this is also highlighted a lot of assertions that are made from the Indian side from time to time. As far as if we look at Pulwama and the way that it happened and the way that we returned their pilot Abhinandan to them, and then subsequently also assertions that India makes from time to time of terrorism that they say comes from Pakistan, the way that this operation happened, the way that Pakistan showed restraint, the way that we categorically kept asking them, we followed procedure, we followed the dictates of any kind of diplomacy with the neighboring country by asking again and again for proof. We asked, the Prime Minister said we're willing to submit to an inquiry. We asked them to come to the table, to share any kind of proofs, and this takes us back to many instances in the past where Pakistan has done so, and India has failed to back up their their assertions, their claims, their allegations with anything concrete or any proof of any kind at all. And perhaps this whole this adventurism from the Indian side, the false flag operation, exposes them like never before in front of the international media, in front of the world, so to speak.
Yes, this was a misadventure by Modi, and I think they miscalculated, and they thought that they could do it and get away with that. But the way President Trump intervened, and India could not even sustain one day. So that shows that India is how weak India is. They are only relying on their propagandist media, which has no clue about what exactly is happening. I mean, it was all, it was not journalism. I can't even call that journalism. It was all false news surrounding on social media and their mainstream media. And I think they are now blaming Modi himself for this, ceasefire, because they're not happy supposedly with that. So I mean, this kind of irresponsible behavior with on such sensitive conditions, I think India should learn from this and should grow up, because civilized countries or mature countries don't act like that. And Pakistan has proven itself. I mean, this is like this is a huge victory. So huge victory, and history will write about it, that Pakistan has shown.
There were questions that were being asked by Indian citizens. There were questions being asked by their own opposition. We know that they were asking questions about proof. They were asking questions about a 20-minute hasty FIR, and like I don't know if you were with us or not, but Safiullah here pointed out that as the ISPR highlighted yesterday, that there are numerous flaws within in the FIR that they have shared, that they have their own FIR with regard to the Pahalgam incident, and there are numerous misses that highlight violations within their own domestic law. And those have not been picked up by the international media, those have not been picked up by the judiciary, but those questions, some of them, are being asked by their own citizens who are asking, how did this happen? How do you have this proof? Where does it come from? And so quickly, this FIR was, and then there was no proof shared of these terrorists who came and apparently, according to India, disappeared into Pakistani territory. So those are questions, those are issues themselves that highlight India's role overall as a terrorist state, as a bully, and that interferes in others' territorial integrity. That's not limited to Pakistan. Of course, we have the singular misfortune of sharing a border with them, but we know that it happened even in India. So in that sense, it's not limited to Pakistan at all.
You said, Mahrukh, absolutely. I mean, there were a lot of loopholes, and India knew it, obviously, because it was a false flag operation. And I think it's high time the international community should also acknowledge Pakistan as a resilient and wise country in terms of critical conditions. And international community should also put India accountable for what kind of irresponsibility it showed in this scenario.
I think you've summed it up very well, and of course our role and in trying to ensure, in trying to combat terrorism, in our role as a victim of terror, as a victim of the kind of terror that has killed our women, that has killed our children, the kind of sacrifices that Pakistan has consistently given, is something that the international world now needs to acknowledge. It's stark, it's evident, it's right in front of them. On that note, we have unfortunately little time before we'll be going to the news, after which we'll come back and talk more about what this ceasefire means and what do we envisage on the 12th perhaps. Please stay with us.